Welcome to the eShopperReviews podcast, episode 28. This is the podcast for July 2023. I'm Jenn Ib.
And I'm Jake McNeil.
For those new to this podcast, eShopperReviews is a subreddit on reddit.com where Jake reviews games on the Nintendo Switch platform, and you can find this subreddit at the URL reddit.com/r/eShopperReviews. We currently have over 2,200 reviews and counting, and we are supported by your donations on our Patreon, which you can find at patreon.com/eShopperReviews. This month's sponsors are Ben, Andy Miller, Xleen, Homer Simpin, Johannes, Eli Goodman, Francis Ops, Gabriel Coronado Medina, Ilya Zarev, Christopher Wolf, and Seth Christenfeld.
Looks like Christenfeld to me, yeah. Again, to any of our patrons, if we mispronounce your name, we apologize. We're trying. But if we do mispronounce your name and it bugs you, send us a message. Let us know, like, it rhymes with this or something like that, and we will try to correct ourselves in the future.
Either way.
But know that we respect you, and we are very grateful to you for your contribution.
Thank you for helping to keep the reviews coming. So, shall we talk about our standard vote or the budget vote?
Oh, you always like to shake it up. Where do you want to start?
Okay. Our budget vote is Cabin Escape: Alice's Story.
This is the game that won the budget vote for the prior month. I don't know anything about this game. All I know is that it is under $2 and it came out sometime this year on the Nintendo Switch. I don't know if it's any good, but I guess we'll find out together. I will review it sometime within the month of July.
Our standard vote resulted in a tie. Samba de Amigo Party Central, and We Love Katamari Reroll plus Royal Reverie.
Normally, when we have a tie on one of these votes, I act as the tiebreaker. But it looks like this time it was the game companies that acted as the tiebreaker, because apparently Samba de Amigo Party Central got delayed until August 29th. So, with that being the case, I will be reviewing We Love Katamari Reroll plus Royal Reverie. And I just want to say, we record these podcasts fairly early into the month because I need time to edit them. And we also need to find a time where both Jen and I can meet on the same schedule. So there's still time after this recording for these things to change. We could be completely off by the time the month is ended. I don't know, we'll see. But as of this recording, those are the games that won the vote, and those are the games that will be reviewed in the month of July.
So next month's vote, which is a mix of July's 2023 game releases and more top-rated 2023 games, they are Pikmin 4, Atelier Marie Remake: The Alchemist of Salberg, Oxenfree 2: Lost Signals, The Case of the Golden Idol, Tents and Trees, Drainus, and Smile for Me.
All of these games are either one of two things. Either they are games that are coming out in the month of July, and I will be, again, reviewing the winner in the following month in August. Or they're games that came out sometime in 2023, and they're fairly highly rated, but I have not yet reviewed them. And I also have not yet, to my memory anyway, had them on one of these votes. And I like to give every game a bit of a chance for people to speak up and go, hey, I really want to hear what you got to say about this one. So we got a good mix of games here, both stuff that's about to come out, stuff that's already come out, and I got a pretty good feeling about just about everything here. Everything here is either well-rated or it's a game that I'm pretty optimistic is going to be at least pretty good. So, we'll see.
Our all-patron budget game vote includes Fishing Vacation, Hidden Bunny, Superhero Demolition, Smash Out, Santa's Monster Shootout, and Tuya.
As per usual with the budget games, I know nothing about any of these games other than they're under the dollar amount of $2. And in this case, all of these are, again, games that came out in 2023. So just so that people are aware, the normal monthly vote, the first vote that we went over, That's a vote that anyone who donated $5 or more on the Patreon can participate in. And the budget vote is a vote that everyone who donated can participate in, regardless of the dollar amount. If you donated $1 or more, you're good to go. If you donated $5 or more, you can take part in both of the votes, and please, I highly encourage you to do so, because I want to try and give you the reviews that you want, and if you don't speak up, it's harder to do that.
All right, so let's talk about the highlights that eShopperReviews covered in the month of June 2023. These aren't necessarily games released in the last month, but games that Jake has reviewed.
Mm-hmm.
We'll start by... Let's look at the hidden gems.
Okay.
You have two here. The first one I actually played. It is Power Wash Simulator.
I know that there were some people on the subreddit who were really surprised that I gave this one as good a review grade as I did. But
really?
I did that within a context, and that context is this. I understand that Power Wash Simulator is aiming for a very, very niche kind of game. And you have to be a very particular kind of gamer to enjoy this sort of thing. But if you have that kind of need to clean everything in a room or something, I feel like this game will actually cater to that kind of desire pretty darn well. It gives you a good amount of variety. It's not a game that's going to have much in the way of major surprises, although there are some interesting DLC stuff that's included here, like you can clean off the vehicles from Final Fantasy VII.
That's really cool.
And I think the other one is I think you can clean off some of the stuff that's in Tomb Raider. It's Square Enix making use of their licenses, although if I recall correctly, they afterwards sold off Tomb Raider to another company. Anyway.
I personally have played this. It is not for me. I played it because several of my friends picked it up and they were raving about it. And I thought I would like it because I like management games. Not for me. Nope. Sorry.
I wouldn't really call it a management game.
No, it's not, but it kind of like...
It's a simulation, but it's not that kind of simulation.
No, it's not.
It's like an experience simulator.
Yeah.
You are simulating the experience of cleaning out a dirty room or a dirty vehicle or something like that.
The satisfaction effect, more or less. Which I didn't get because I just felt like I was...
You were grossed out?
Not grossed out. And it's supposed to be like, it can be a low-key sort of cleaning game or whatever, but I just felt pressured.
That's funny because at least the main campaign has no time limits. There's no resources you need to keep track of. You can take as long as you want. You can be as inefficient as you want. Take all the time in the world cleaning off all the little details if you so choose.
Wasn't for me.
Fair
Sorry.
enough.
The next one under the hidden gems is Never Awake.
Never Awake, I feel like I don't have too much to say about it. Other than it's good. It is a two-stick shooter. It has an interesting aesthetic where you're basically flying through the dreams or the subconscious of a girl who is in a coma. And so the enemies in the game are like, a giant broccoli monster or something because she hates that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not anything that really revolutionizes the genre in any way, and there are definitely two-stick shooters on the Nintendo Switch that I would gravitate toward more, but just in general, this is a pretty solid entry in the genre, and if you like this style of game, this is going to be a good bet for you.
Alright, so you have one game in the other noteworthy reviews, which is Jaraterre RPG.
So, Jaraterre RPG, or Jaraterre, I'm not sure how to pronounce it.
We tried.
This was the patron-voted budget game for the prior month. However you pronounce it, Jaraterre RPG is not really an RPG. It's more of a mahjong puzzle game. It doesn't strictly adhere to the rules of solitaire mahjong. It's kind of a little loosely inspired by it, and that would be fine, except it's really poorly executed. One of the main problems that I had with this game is they divide the screen in half, with one half showing a picture of the monster you're fighting. And it's not really doing much. It's just sitting there and maybe it'll shake a bit when you hit it or something. And then on the bottom of that is your health bar, but you don't get to see the monster's health bar, which is a little odd. And then the other portion of the screen is also divided kind of into sections where the top part shows you the attacks you have queued up, because each match represents an attack. And so the matches that you're actually making take up a fraction of the screen, and you kind of have to squint to see them, even if you're playing on a TV. I mean, there are all kinds of problems like that. I feel like there were some good ideas here, but they just did not coalesce into a good game.
Moving on to the worst games, you have a few.
Mm-hmm.
Two of which I'm really surprised to include here.
Oh?
Hentai World and Hentai Girls.
You're surprised that I would say those are two of the worst games I reviewed this month?
I'm surprised you brought them into the podcast since you kind of want that family-friendly vibe.
Okay, I can talk about these games without saying anything lewd or untoward, or whatever the word I'm looking for is. Look, these games are, obviously you can tell by the name, these are ecchi games. These are kind of adult-only games, because they have depictions of female characters in states of undress. See? Totally keeping it above board here. Anyway, so as I often say with this style of game, I don't necessarily like these types of games. I don't necessarily hate them either. Although, man, it is very rare for a game like this to actually be good. I have actually played a few ecchi games that were actually decent, but the majority of them are pretty terrible, and Hentai World and Hentai Girls are pretty gross, all things considered. I would say the actual content of the games isn't particularly gross. In fact, it's very mild. Basically, the worst you get is girls that have their shirts off. They're not necessarily doing anything except for posing in cheesecake poses. Really, the disgustingness comes in everything surrounding them. And each of these games has kind of the exact same gameplay, kind of the exact same presentation, but a major problem that's kind of different from each other. Hentai World, the problem with this one is that there are, at least a half dozen different versions of this game on the eShop, and each one of those different versions is exactly the same. The only thing that differs between them is the free DLC content that's packaged with the game. But it's free DLC. You could just download it anyway. It doesn't matter which version of the game you get. You're still going to get access to all the same content. And the only reason for them to have it on the eShop multiple times is to artificially increase the presence of this game on the eShop, which is really gross.
And to make you spend more money, of course.
I think it shows up in your account as the same game. Like, if you download one, you can't buy the other. So at the very least, they're not doing that. But it's still pretty gross. And then the other thing, Hentai Girls, doesn't have that going yet, although I do see that they have DLC that they're going to make available for it at some point, so I'm pretty sure they'll get around to it. But the problem with Hentai Girls is there are only 6 distinct images in the entire game. The game is built around the idea that you're playing a puzzle to reveal these images, and there's only 6 of them. Granted, they have variations of those 6 in varying states of undress, but it's like, if you're going to be getting a game like this, you'd like to think that you're going to be getting more than 6 stupid images. And that is all on top of the major question, which is, why? These are terrible puzzle games. It is just a sliding tile puzzle. All you're doing is the same kind of sliding tile puzzle game you've seen countless times before, It's not done well here. It's not like it's a particularly good sliding tile puzzle game, although those never get especially good as far as I've seen. But even beyond that, if you are really looking for lewd images of scantily clad women, you have a wealth of that available for free, just a quick Google search away. Why would you spend money on this piece of trash? These two pieces of trash. One, where they have used a loophole to try and get this onto the eShop multiple times, and one where they barely put any content in the game at all. It's gross, and it's not gross because of the nude girls. It's gross because of the ways that they're trying to trick people into giving them more money.
Next up is Daily Dadish.
Most of the Dadish games, I think, are fine. I think they are not truly exceptional, but they're not really offensive either. They're decent little platformers, sometimes with little puzzly elements in the levels. There's nothing spectacular going on with them, but they're cute. They got a retro pixel art style. They're fine. Daily Dadish is a bit different, though. And it starts by reusing all of the same graphics and the assets from Dadish 3. It's not presenting anything new as far as the presentation goes. It has an interesting gimmick in theory, and that gimmick is that each day of the year when you play this game, there's a completely different level. So there's theoretically something like 365 levels in the game, one for each day of the year. The problem is that only one level is available for each day. You do not get to revisit levels after you've played them. Basically, if you play a level in the game today and you really like it, and then you come back to the game tomorrow, there will be a completely different level, and you won't be able to go back to the one that you really liked yesterday. What's more, let's say you play the game today, you get through the level, and you want to play more. Too bad, come back tomorrow.
Why?
It's an interesting idea in theory, but in practice it means that players can only ever get a drip, drip, drip feed of gameplay here. And it's not even that great gameplay to begin with. If you want a Dadish game, go for one of the 3 numbered Dadish games. Dadish, Dadish 2, Dadish 3. They're not great, but they're not horrible either. They're fine. Don't get Daily Dadish. It is a waste.
Last up is Shmup Mania.
Shmup Mania. So, Shmup Mania sounds like it's probably a bundle, but actually, Shmup Mania is just a single shmup. And it is forgettable, mediocre, poorly designed,
Yikes.
Terrible controls. It's one of those ones where you have to rapidly tap the button to keep firing. And there's no reason for that. And what's even more pointless is the $10 price tag attached to this game. And I know they just did that so that they can make it seem like a really good deal when it goes on sale for $2. But I don't think that excuses a game. I think that just makes it even more sleazy, that they are using a ridiculous price to make them seem generous when they sell it at a price that's maybe less ridiculous. This isn't even worth the $2. There are so many good shmups on Nintendo Switch. So many. Do not get this one.
Off to the best games, which actually I'm very happy with this list.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the first one is Fire Emblem Engage.
This comes on the heels of Fire Emblem Three Houses, which was quite possibly the biggest game in the entire franchise. It was huge. It did some really interesting experimental stuff with the way that you build up your army, with the way that you build up their interrelationships, with the way that you communicate with everyone and manage your schedule. And none of that is present in this game. This game scales it back to kind of the more traditional strategy RPG elements that most of the series is known by. And I think that's going to be disappointing for some. It's going to make for kind of a smaller experience. but it's not a bad experience. It's still a really, really good strategy RPG. While I will say I found the story to be pretty awful and I didn't care about any of these characters, and I thought that the fan servicey elements of bringing back old characters from throughout the Fire Emblem series, it was just kind of gimmicky. It didn't really do much for me. But all of that doesn't matter quite so much when the gameplay is still very, very good, when the graphics are even better than they were in Fire Emblem Three Houses. I mean, I say even better, Fire Emblem Three Houses was not that great graphically. I heard someone somewhere say that it feels like Fire Emblem Engage gets all the stuff right that Three Houses got wrong, and Three Houses got all the stuff right that Fire Emblem Engage gets wrong.
Oh.
I think they're both still excellent, excellent strategy RPGs. I think this one, some of the strategy RPG gameplay elements make this a more deep and complex game, although not more difficult to understand. I think that on balance, I still prefer Three Houses, but this is really an excellent game as well. Definitely worth it if you are a fan of this genre.
Synergia.
Synergia really took me by surprise. I was not expecting to like this game as much as I did. And in fact, just to give you an idea, I'm coming off of the high of playing literally 200 hours of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And it's really hard for me to think about other games. This is the mindset I was in when I went into Synergia. And it completely captured my attention, which I was not expecting to happen. This is a game, it's a visual novel, very, very story-focused. The plot is set in a cyberpunk futuristic world, and it's set in a society where there are androids, but there are also laws set in place that forbid relationships between androids and humans. And at its core, this is sort of kind of a love story between a human who's kind of been burned before in the past and an android. And I think that the things this game does really, really well, first of all, the character designs are fantastic. The characters in this game look wonderful. Second of all, I think the characters themselves are really, really well crafted. They're well written, very likable characters, and they have a lot of complexity to them. I found myself immediately liking at least 3 of the main characters in this game. On top of that, this game tackles a lot of interesting science fiction ideas about AI and automation and the problems that this kind of stuff can bring and the potential that it has as well. And all of this is set in a kind of, I would say, almost post-apocalyptic world. It's definitely a dystopian state. It does a very good job of asking the question of whether or not a forbidden love can bloom in a world where you can't trust anyone, where there's so much paranoia going around that you always have to worry about someone spying on you and catching you doing something you're not. I do feel that this game kind of falls apart in the final section because it seems like a lot of big plot revelations are rushed, and it would have been better to have them to give them more time to air out and breathe so that you can absorb them and get a feel for them. And because of these plot revelations, it feels like you're getting a lot of drastic changes in the characters' personalities late into the story. And those changes do make sense in light of the events that are going on, but it's still very jarring, and I feel like it would have been better for the pacing for that final part to be drawn out, or for those revelations to be sprinkled throughout the story. However, overall, if you're a fan of sci-fi stories, this one is a definite must. Don't expect a lot of major gameplay elements. There are a few choices that you make throughout the game, but there are really only 2 endings, and beyond that, there's not much in the way of choice. This isn't like the Phoenix Wright games where you have a lot of stuff you can do, but the story itself is the star here, and it very much deserves to be because it is wonderful.
Last one is Evergate.
Evergate is a really enjoyable little platformer. It has some elements that reminded me of Ori and the Blind Forest, but it's not a Metroidvania like that game is. The main premise behind this game is that you control a character who has a move called a Soul Flame. And what this is at any point, you can hold down one of the triggers and it'll slow down time and put a little laser radiating out from your character. And if on that laser's path, you can manage to get both a gemstone that's, floating in the air and one of the glowing surfaces, it will make use of that gemstone to do something specific for that gemstone. Like there are some that will give you an extra midair boost in that direction. There are some that create platforms, that kind of thing. And it uses this in combination with some really good level design to just make for a really excellent platformer. I think that the need to have two or more things on the same line kind of makes this feel more restrictive than I'd like it to be. But other than that, it feels wonderful to move around in this game. It's super fast to restart. There's, like I said, really good level design. Just all around good platformer. Well done.
All right, some housekeeping. Nintendo Switch Online June 23 releases for Nintendo Entertainment System, Super Nintendo Entertainment System, and Game Boy. And those are Mystery Tower, Harvest Moon, yay, Blaster Master Enemy Below, and Kirby Tilt and Tumble.
You say yay for Harvest Moon, but how long has it been since you last played the original Harvest Moon?
Oh, a few years, but I still remember.
I mean, you're used to games like Stardew Valley and those
Sunhaven.
And Sunhaven. Well, Sunhaven is on PC for those who are. Yeah. It's not on Switch to my knowledge. So those are games that built off of the legacy of games like Harvest Moon. And let me say that genre has progressed a lot since those days. It is kind of hard going back to that original game, but it's still fun.
Yeah.
And that's just it is. Most of the games in this list of releases are not spectacular, but I feel like they all have merit. They all have value, and they all have someone that they're likely to appeal to. Mystery Tower was a Japan-only game that is releasing in the US for the first time, and it's a puzzle platformer, and it's a little awkward to control, and it seems a little archaic, but it's not bad. Blaster Master Enemy Below was a Game Boy Color game that is a Metroidvania that I think suffers a bit due to the limited screen size of the Game Boy Color. But aside from that, it's a solid Metroidvania game. It's a really good Blaster Master game. And I think that the highlight of this group of games is Kirby Tilt and Tumble. This is another Game Boy Color game. And this one, when it was originally released, was controlled using, it had a cartridge that had a little gyroscope thing in it, and it could actually sense as you moved the controller around. And they have emulated that using the Joy-Cons or Pro Controller of the Nintendo Switch, so you can literally tilt your controller around to control it the same way. And this is a bit gimmicky. It's not going to appeal to everyone. But if you don't mind this kind of gimmicky control scheme, this is a really creative game. It's got a lot of variety. It's got a lot of personality to it. And I would say it's the highlight of this bunch. But really, I don't think there are any terrible games in this bunch, even though I think I gave a C grade to at least a few of these. I don't think any of them are outright bad. I just feel like their appeal is going to be limited or they're a bit archaic, but there's still some good in pretty much all of these games, I think.
And coming to Nintendo Switch Online Expansion Pack is a release for Game Boy Advance, which is Fire Emblem.
I'll note, we are recording this prior to this release. It was actually just announced, and I haven't gotten my hands on the Nintendo Switch emulated version of this. However, I played this game in its original release. I played it on the Virtual Console on the Wii U. And unless there's something major that they change or that goes wrong with this game, I can't imagine that my opinion is going to change much. Fire Emblem is an excellent, excellent strategy RPG. This is a game that when this game was released in Japan, it was called Fire Emblem The Blazing Blade. And I should note, Japan is actually getting an additional game that we're not this month. They're getting Fire Emblem The Binding Blade, the sequel to this. And it kind of sucks that we're not getting that, but...
Oh, well.
Oh, well. Anyway, this game, the game that we did get, Fire Emblem, is the 7th game in the series, but it is the first one that came to the US. And it is an excellent entry in the series. The series still progressed quite a bit since this game came out, but you can still see a lot of the quality that is still present to this day is still in this game. And I will note, this is a game that's not going to be for quite everyone, because this was back from a time when all of the Fire Emblem games had forced permadeath for all the characters, where if one of your characters died in battle, you could never use them again. Ooh. And not everyone liked that mechanic. Some people love it. Some people felt like it really made the battles intense and made you feel closer to the characters. Personally, I'm not a fan of permadeath myself, but I don't begrudge the game for doing that because it's something that some people really love. Thankfully, more modern games in the series give you the choice of one or the other. In any case, regardless, I think this is an outstanding strategy RPG, and fans of the genre should be thrilled that this is coming to the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack.
So, shall we talk about the elephant in the room?
Yeah, so... let's talk about how we got here, and then we'll talk about what here is.
Yeah. Well, Reddit has decided to kill third-party apps. And...
technically, officially, and again, I am not an expert at this kind of stuff, so I'm just kind of repeating it as I understand it. But what they are doing is that they have made changes to their API, which will change the way that third-party apps interact with the website. It will change the way that scripts interact with the website. And it does it in a way where they are going to be adding additional charges for all of these interactions in a way that is so prohibitively expensive that it will effectively kill third-party apps, and it will make it exceedingly difficult to moderate subreddits using bots. I understand the reasons why they're doing this. The reasons that they're doing this are actually sensible. Reddit is losing money, and they want to make money. They are doing this by trying to funnel people into their official app and their official website, where they can ensure that they're going to have more people viewing ads on the website. That's where they're making their money. The thing is, this is in and of itself nothing unusual for websites that allow others to carry their content. If you're looking at websites like YouTube or Twitter, they have similar agreements where anyone who wants to host a significant amount of their content on their page or on their app or whatever needs to pay a portion of their income over to that original website, over to YouTube or Twitter or whatever. The thing is that the amount of money that Reddit is demanding from these third parties is so exorbitantly expensive, so ridiculously overpriced, that it is absolutely clear that they are not trying to make money off of these third-party apps. They're trying to kill them outright. And in doing so, they are screwing over a lot of their community, because the Reddit app has only been around for a few years. And prior to that, there were other apps that people were using to browse Reddit if they didn't want to use just a standard browser, if they wanted to have a more customized experience, if they wanted to have one that was a bit more focused on specifically Reddit, and in particular, if they wanted an experience that was going to be better for people who had disability issues. If they were, having trouble seeing or something like that, they were able to customize their experience to be more usable for them. And this change is basically ensuring that all of those people are going to be just out of luck for browsing the website. It's greedy, it's unnecessarily harsh, and it comes with additional problems as well, because in addition to this, they've changed the terms for any kind of moderation bots or any kind of bots that are operating on the website, where they are saying that they are not allowed to use adult terms. And that might sound like it is a good thing. It means that you can't flood Reddit with a bunch of bots that are meant for like adult only stuff. But the problem is that subreddits that have a lot of views on them that moderate their content using bots need to use those terms so they know what to look for to filter out. And without being able to do that, those major subreddits are going to have a much more difficult time keeping out those posts in the first place. So it is actually counterintuitive and counterproductive. Again, this is all as I understand it. And as I've explained on Reddit, I don't actually use third-party apps to browse Reddit. I mainly use a web browser using the old.reddit.com version of the website. I hate the new version of the website. As I understand it, the app has much the same problem, which is it is very inefficient in the way that it displays information. It looks ugly to me. It makes it harder to read through pages, in my opinion. And I prefer the old Reddit format. Much in the same way, a lot of people prefer using the alternate apps to browse Reddit, and Reddit has basically given all of these people the middle finger. Sorry to wrest this control of the conversation away from you, but I felt like having a bit of discussion first of all.
You're fine. I did not understand it nearly as well as you do.
I'm just repeating the words of others as best I can. As much as I like a lot of, like, this subreddit, eShopperReviews, is devoted to a technological medium, but I'm not a tech guy myself. I know the basic understandings of how a lot of this tech stuff works, but a lot of the details just elude me. I couldn't tell you what an API actually is. I can only tell you what I'm seeing everyone else saying that these changes are going to do. And it sounds pretty terrible to me.
So you decided to protest this.
Initially, I was going to join in a lot of the other subreddits on Reddit were doing a blackout, and they were specifically doing a 2-day blackout. I decided it would be easier for me to do a whole week of a blackout. I did want to protest in solidarity with others, even though this doesn't personally affect me, because it's one of those, if I don't protest when it doesn't affect me, then that means that others won't protest when it does affect me. And I can see these changes leading to a future when Reddit kills the old.reddit.com version of the website. And I don't know that I would keep doing eShopperReviews if that ever came to pass. I cannot stand the standard Reddit website, the new Reddit or whatever they call it. So if they decide to kill old Reddit, that's it. I'm done permanently. I cannot continue on with Reddit. And this is not that, but I feel like this is a preview of that could be coming up next. And if I don't speak up now, then it just means that I'm going to be in a worse position when it comes to that. And I know that there are others that this affects way worse than it affects me. And just because it doesn't affect me as bad doesn't mean that I don't feel like it's my responsibility to speak up. So other people were taking 2 days off, doing a 2-day blackout. I decided to do a whole week. It's easier for me to block out a week. So I figured I'll do it for a whole week. And then we got kind of an unofficial response from Reddit that was very disheartening. Basically, internal memos were revealed showing that Reddit CEOs were basically telling their investors, just weather it out. They're just complaining, but they're going to be done in a couple of days, and then it'll be over with, and they'll just have to live with it. And that definitely shows that they're not taking the protesting seriously.
No, they're not.
There were some other things that they said that are extremely bothersome that I'll get to in a bit. So we are recording this podcast before the eShopperReviews subreddit is going to be making the changes that I'm going to be talking about here. So this is all experimental stuff we haven't put into action yet. But given the Reddit leadership, how they have responded to these blackouts, the massive number of people on Reddit saying that they do not approve of these changes that Reddit is making, and Reddit's officials are basically saying, yeah, well, go suck an egg, we don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel comfortable going back to business as usual when they're not taking seriously the concerns and demands of a sizable portion of Reddit's readership. So even though we had intended to come back to normal operation after a week, I feel like we can't do that. And so by the time this podcast comes out, this will already have gone into effect. But basically our plan at this point is until Reddit makes serious changes to these plans that they have instituted, and until they change course, we're going to be blacking out our subreddit on reddit.com indefinitely, at least until they make some serious changes. I don't know if that'll happen, and if that happens, I don't know when it'll happen. But until then, we will not be hosting any public anything on reddit.com. Instead, we will be moving all of the reviews going forward to the Patreon page that we keep talking about. And we are not going to be charging anyone for the reviews. We're still going to be putting up reviews, and they will be free for everyone to access. This is not going to cost anyone any more than they currently do or don't spend. And I am going to be cutting down the amount of reviews that I'm posting just because I don't want to be flooding the Patreon page, but you will still be getting regular reviews on Patreon. But I do not feel like I can, in good conscience, continue to provide content to Reddit when this is the kind of attitude that they are bringing to the complaints that people are having about the terrible changes that they are instituting.
Nope, I agree. And quite frankly, I don't really see if Reddit's leadership is going to take it seriously. So who knows? Who knows what the future will hold?
Well, Reddit is claiming that the protests thus far have not affected their bottom line. I kind of doubt that because I've seen that they have taken a hit to their readership. Granted, it was mainly just for a couple of days, but there are some subreddits that are going to go blacking out indefinitely until changes are made. And this prompted another response from the executives at Reddit, and one that I find to be even more bothersome than what they were doing before. Apparently, the leadership at Reddit is taking the position that any subreddits that continue to black out and protest, that they will have their leadership removed and replaced. That is apparently a message or insinuation that some of the more major subreddits that have been blacking out have gotten. I think the Apple subreddit was one of them.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I want to say, I'm going off of memory here. So they're basically saying that all of the people who are basically providing free content to the website, that if they don't step in line and just do as they're told, that they will be replaced. I don't take a kind view toward that.
That's a very bad PR stance.
And while my subreddit, eShopperReviews, is a pretty minor subreddit, we have, as of this recording, under 9,000 subscribers. It's not big.
No.
I don't think that this subreddit is likely to make a major effect to the overall operations of the website overall, but I do think in solidarity with others that we can have an effect. So, given the steps that Reddit is threatening to take against their own community for speaking out and standing up for themselves, I won't go into details, but let me just say that I'm taking steps in the background to ensure that, number one, I will continue to be able to provide you content. I'm already doing that with the Patreon. Number two, I am looking to back up the content I've already created. And number three, I am looking to protect that which is mine. And eShopperReviews is mine. It might be hosted on Reddit, but it is my creation. All the content was created by me with some help from Jenn.
Some, but most of it was you.
And I'm not going to stand by if they decide to try and hand over my creation to someone else because I won't play ball. I won't just be nice and do what they want. No, I'm not going to go along with that. I'm not going to be okay with that. And if they decide to take extra steps, I have some extra steps in mind of my own. But we'll leave that for another time. We'll see if it comes to that. Like I said, I'm pretty small potatoes, so it might come to nothing. But if it does come to something, well, we're in for interesting times.
All right. Well, that wraps things up for this month's eShopperReviews podcast. Again, we want to thank all of you on our Patreon page for contributing. Patreon donors are the first ones to gain access to these podcasts, and if you are interested in becoming a donor, please check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/eShopperReviews. And once again, if you're curious to read any of the reviews or content mentioned in this podcast, you can find it on the subreddit.
Not anymore. For now, you can find it on our Patreon page. Like I said, all reviews will continue to be available to everyone as I post them. I'm not going to be pay gating them. I'm not going to be charging people extra because Reddit's being a butt.
Once again, this has been Jenn Ip
and Jake McNeil.
We'll see you all next month, and in the meantime, we both hope you found this content helpful and enjoyed some good games.
And I hope that things improve because right now they feel kind of dark.
Catch you all next time.
Later.